Hi, I'm Melanie Boyer, the director of the Pittsburgh Metropolitan Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Whether you're tuning in live or whether you're watching us back later, we're so happy to have you. Today, we're going to be speaking to the SBA. So with a little bit of background, the United States has more than 3.5 million Hispanic-owned businesses, according to the SBA Office of Advocacy. Hispanic-owned small businesses generate $474 billion in annual sales. That is an enormous impact to our national economy. The United States government and its agencies buy a lot from small businesses, nearly $100 billion on goods and services every year. But only about 8% of that goes to Hispanic businesses, despite the fact that we are more than 18% of the population. So part of that barrier is access and education. So today we are talking to David Pinkowski, which I should have checked how to say his name, sorry. He is a business opportunity specialist with the United States Small Business Administration in the Western Pennsylvania District Office. The SBA provides expert advice, business coaching, mentoring, and training to help Hispanic and other entrepreneurs overcome barriers to success, including Spanish language resource guides and fact sheets in Spanish. In this class, we're going to discuss the pros and cons of working in the federal marketplace and a brief overview of SBA certifications that can help you federally contract. And here we are. Hello. Oh, Dave, are you there?
Very much. I'm very excited to be here today. Sorry, everybody, that I'm not on camera. We are just trying to get me on screen there, and for whatever reason, I'm just a cute little bubble, as Melanie put it, with my mug on there. So apologize for not having the camera on. But I'm very, very happy to be here today. I was very excited when Melanie invited me to speak, and I'm just really excited to talk to you about government contracting and kind of some of the pros and cons of it. When you're first looking at the federal sector, it can be a lot of work. We're going to talk about some of that, and it can be pretty intimidating, but it's definitely something that is very, very doable for a lot of our small business clients. So, Melanie, thank you so much for having me, and I will go ahead and jump right in here.
Yes, thank you for being here.
All righty, excellent. So, get my first slide there. Okay, everything look good there? Okay, great. As Melanie said, she gave a great intro about the SBA, so not going to spend a ton of time on it. But as she mentioned, I am Dave Pinkowski from the Pittsburgh District Office. And even though we are labeled as Pittsburgh, we do serve all of Western Pennsylvania. So there's actually 68 Small Business Administration district offices across the country. And some of our larger states like PA, do have multiple districts. So western half of Pennsylvania is my area. We serve the 27 counties from about the Ohio border over to about Center County, which is State College area. And then, of course, we have the Eastern District Office. So we have multiple disaster service centers, things like that. Our regional offices, our headquarters obviously is in DC. We are a cabinet level entity, meaning that our national administrator is appointed by the president, but we are a nonpartisan entity. I mean, all of our elected officials, they all have different ideas about how to implement business programs and things like that to hopefully assist the small business community. But, as field office employees and district level staff, our role is not to get involved in the politics. So I always like to mention that because sometimes people get nervous if a certain elected official is in a certain position and they think we're focused on those things, and those are just completely outside of our wheelhouse. Our mission on a daily basis is really just to help you as the small business owner. So we care about you, and it's our job to help you build, grow, expand, pretty much whatever you need, and do that in a number of different ways. A lot of business counseling, obviously, a lot of training workshops and things like this. Some of that counseling we do in-house at the SBA. Other times we do rely on our funded SBA partners. We actually give some of our funding every year to the small business development centers, our SCORE chapters, which is the Service Corps of Retired Executives, women's business centers. We have a lot of great groups here in Western Pennsylvania that can help you with all kinds of stuff. So it doesn't necessarily have to be government contracting related. We have experts for things that will help you in the commercial sector, marketing, business plans, QuickBooks training, Maybe if you are interested in exploring a new product idea, they can help you with some of that market research to see if it is a viable option for you if you're kind of just starting out. Pretty much whatever you need, we probably have very good odds we have an expert somewhere that can help you out with it. So that's really our role, is to just kind of work with businesses with what they're after to help you be successful. So no matter what stage of business you're in, we're definitely here to provide the support and hopefully assist you with whatever we can. So
I want to ask you one thing.
Sure.
So, one of the major barriers with the Hispanic population, especially first generation, is the lack of trust in government. And there's a lot of worry about reporting and things like that. And I know you guys are great with that. Can you just speak a little bit on that before we get into it?
Oh, sure. Well, obviously, when it comes to the reporting and things like that with the different programs, that is something that you want to be aware of and everything. But as long as you're keeping good records, good business practices and things like that, you really aren't going to have any trouble with those types of things. That is something I cover a little later in the slides a little bit when I talk about kind of prepping for government work in the federal sector and exploring some of these opportunities. There are some things you want to kind of get in line with your business first. But that really shouldn't be too big of a concern as long as you're doing things properly and keeping good quality records and, understand how to do that, you're going to be fine. So I hope that answers your question, Melanie.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that people felt comfortable. Thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple of quick little anecdotes about that type of stuff too that I like to relay whenever we talk about things. But so why pursue federal contracts in the first place? And Melanie is absolutely right. And one of the great things about the federal government and why a lot of small businesses even look at it is not only do we care about small business because we as the SBA, exist as an agency to assist small businesses, like I said, but with federal contracting, we buy anything and everything you could possibly imagine, and a lot of really goofy things sometimes that you couldn't even dream of. So it's always fun to talk about those. But, vast markets. We are the world's largest purchaser of products and supplies. So we buy so much stuff that it'll just kind of blow your mind when we talk about some of that. So it's a great way to generate additional revenue for your company. And one of the things we actually saw last year at the start of the pandemic was a lot of our small business procurement vendors that were already in the pipeline, already doing some federal contracts and federal work. They were able to sustain themselves a lot better and weather the storm when things started going south on the commercial sector due to the pandemic. And when you think about it, in a lot of cases, that makes sense. The types of contracts that we help people get and that we work with are contracts that help government employees and agencies, people like myself, our military, and our other federal agencies execute their missions on a daily basis. So obviously our military doesn't stop working and running just because the pandemic hit. If you had a construction project, say the local U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and maybe they had a dam or a lock that needed replaced or something was going to fail. Well, if that dam is going to break, it's not going to not break just because the pandemic hit. So those construction firms were still out there doing that work and everything. So that's a really key thing about it. It's typically not something that you'd want to put all your eggs into one basket with. You don't want to rely solely on government work, and we'll talk about some of that here in a little bit. But it can be a very viable market. Another great thing about it, two great things actually, is the availability of past contract data, and you're always guaranteed to get paid with us. So with the past contract history, one of the cool things about government work is once a contract is awarded, it becomes part of the Freedom of Information Act. So you can very easily go to some different websites, do some market research, and find out not only what agencies are likely to buy what you sell, but how much they paid for it. You really can't do that in the commercial sector. You have no idea if there's proprietary information or anything, what your competitor may be offering, a vendor or somebody else you want to work with. With government information, it's all out there publicly. You can very easily look up that information. It can give you a lot of key data and help you identify, again, not only the agencies, but if you can be competitive on price and things like that. And as far as the Prompt Payment Act, we are actually guarantee that we will pay you within 30 days of submission of a proper invoice. And I can tell you that our federal agencies almost never, ever go past that 30 days. Most of them are within 14. That's tends to be the norm. But, no matter where you are in the pipeline, even if you're a second tier, third tier subcontractor, you always know that, your prime is getting paid and that money is flowing down to you relatively quickly. So there's no really no hassle or any areas where you're going to get stuck for 3 or 4 months and you're not getting paid. So you can't pay your staff or you can't pay somebody else because you're waiting on somebody else to pay you, that sort of thing. It does not happen on the federal side. So just some really cool things about why you may want to take a look at it. So I kind of mentioned this already. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide, but we are the world's biggest customer. This is just a quick breakdown, kind of percentage basis of where we buy most of our products and things. About 36% is for supplies and equipment, day-to-day things. R&D is 35% along with engineering. 19% for agricultural products, 7% for construction, and about 3% for wholesale and retail. Now, again, Melanie made a very, very key point when she was doing my intro there and then talking about SBA a little bit. Those percentages for some of these things, and I'll discuss this a little more later, look kind of low, but we're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar budget. That's the federal spend every year. So we're talking about billions of dollars in all of these industries. So the odds are pretty good that there's going to be a fit for you somewhere.
I was going to say, one thing I want to add is, people think, oh, my business doesn't fit. This isn't good for me. But you never know until you try. And I think, I've heard of some businesses that I thought would never do government contracting, jump in and have those opportunities as well. So you never know.
Absolutely. Great point, Melanie, without a doubt. Next slide here, just have a quick look at the federal procurement dollar. Like Melanie said, we're talking about billions that we set aside for small businesses and that we spend every year. And actually about 64 cents out of every dollar we spend on the federal level that we put out on the street through a government contract actually goes to our defense agencies. So we're talking about Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, defense logistics agencies, the different supply depots, defense supply centers, things like that. And about 36% out of every dollar goes to our civilian agencies. So like DOJ, GSA, SBA, we're a civilian agency, that sort of thing. And of course, that funnels down through prime contractors and their subs. That's always kind of fun to look at. So kind of mentioned, the common things. Like I said, we buy all the normal stuff that you use in your daily life. We're going to buy it too. Only a lot of it, typically. Food, clothing. We buy more oatmeal cookies than anybody. Peanut butter, tires. Obviously, we have huge fleets of vehicles. We go through a lot of tires, as you can imagine. So you name it, there's probably an opportunity if it's a commodity. So yeah, anything you use in your daily basis, in your life on a daily basis, if you think about it, like I said, we are going to buy it without a doubt. But some of the fun stuff that we don't buy is always interesting to talk about. Now, we have all our fun defense stuff and everything else. So yes, we buy rockets and missiles and different things like that, working with the Lockheed Martins and fighter jets and airplanes, Boeings, and stuff. So, there's a lot of that out there. But as a small business entity, you would be surprised at some of the really unique opportunities that you can potentially, work with the federal sector on, and some things you can actually supply to the government. So these are just a few of the kind of interesting things I come across sometimes on our different websites when I'm looking at procurement activities and things like that. Cadaver parts, those can be really gruesome occasionally. They'll actually say they want like a left arm. They don't care if the fingers are on the hand, but they want the hand and the wrist joint and the elbow joint up to the shoulder, which is kind of weird. Beaver relocation services, I actually see that quite a bit with the National Park Service out west. So apparently the beavers like to build the dams in the kind of the areas where the civilians are, and people were trying to play and relax and everything, and we kind of get into each other's ways, I guess. So we don't see that too much around here, but the beaver relocation. I actually had a client interested in that third one at one point. A number of years ago, they found a solicitation on a public website for a federal solicitation to be the piano player for Protestant church services in Okinawa, Japan, on a Marine base. So it was actually a multi-year contract. The client didn't pursue it, but they were interested in it initially. And it was a multi-year contract on a Marine base in Okinawa, Japan. And all you had to do was live there for 3 years. You got to stay on the base and be available 24/7 to play the piano. So just really interesting stuff that you wouldn't really think of. Now, the one thing I do want to caution and mention, even though it's kind of fun to look at some of these things and talk about, is two things. One, even if things sometimes from the federal side, when you see a solicitation out on the street that sounds kind of weird, or you think, oh, that's stupid, why are they wasting tax dollars on that? We are very, very mission focused on the federal side. So when our procurements come out, it's because we have a severe need for it, and it's something that we need, again, to execute our jobs or missions on a daily basis. So even though you may see something that looks a little ridiculous, there's been a lot of market research into that before we even put that solicitation out. So you can rest assured, there's a good reason we're spending that money. We are very cognizant on the federal side, our procurement officers, and I actually used to write and award contracts and negotiate these things. And now at the SBA, I just teach people how to respond to the things that I used to write and everything. So I've been on all sides of it. I've even competed on things before. So I understand where you guys are coming from. And I used to think the same thing. Some of those solicitations come out and I'm like, oh, what a waste of taxpayer dollars. But it's absolutely not the case. So rest assured, there's a lot of research and things that go into this stuff. So that's one thing I want to mention. Even if you see something that looks a little ridiculous, it's because we have a need. And two, these are uncommonly purchased products and services. So like I said in the beginning, there may be opportunities for you no matter what you supply or what you do if you are in kind of a really obscure area. But one of the things you're going to want to do is really focus on some market research to see if it's worth your while to actually supply the government. If you're in an area that we only put a solicitation out, maybe we only put one or two solicitations out for a particular product or service every couple of years, then you're not going to have a lot of volume or a lot of interaction or a lot of opportunity to even bid on some of those things. So again, I always like to caution that slide. It's fun to look at, but I just want to mention those couple of things. And of course, why not? Extremely competitive, obviously. Probably no more competitive than any other sector that you're in. But, government work, there's a lot of small businesses that want to do it. It can be difficult to identify end users. That part can be frustrating. Kind of how procurements work on the federal sector is there's procurement teams that procurements kind of work through a process. So you'll have an end user who's the person that makes the request to the contracting officer. And then the contracting officer will work with their team to actually put that solicitation out, and they'll take care of all the awarding, the bidding process, the negotiating, and all that stuff. But the contracting officer is the person you're going to have to deal with. There's a number of reasons for that. Due to security is one. But secondly, I typically use the example of if you're trying to work with a surgeon at the VA. If at the VA hospital, that surgeon, that doctor, they're worried about being in the operating room doing their job on a daily basis. They are not a federal buying expert. That is the contracting officer's mission. So ideally, if you have some sort of new medical device or a scalpel or something that you'd love to market to the surgeon, because that's the person that's actually going to use that item. However, you're not going to be able to get access to that person. So the contracting officers who you're going to have to deal with. And that can be sometimes frustrating because, again, the contracting officers, they are experts at business. They know how to do their market research. They know how to do all the federal procurement regulations and rules and make sure they're awarding things properly and working with the vendors and all that sort of thing. But again, they are not the person that's actually going to use that device, item, or that service that they're actually procuring. So sometimes that can be tricky. Obviously, there's a lot of regulations, reporting requirements, audits. Some of this goes in line with what Melanie asked in the beginning. All that type of stuff is absolutely something to be cognizant of. The business information disclosed, like I said, whenever you have a contract, if you win an award, your information will become part of the Freedom of Information Act. So your contract and everything will be out there for the public. So I have clients sometimes, they love the idea up front of, I can see all my competitors' stuff and what they're selling to the government. But then they say, well, wait a minute, I don't want my stuff out there. Well, unfortunately, you can't have it both ways. So if you win a contract, it's going to be equitable and fair for everybody. So your information could potentially be out there as well. And obviously, there's no guarantees. One of the most frustrating things about procurement is you can spend a lot of time and effort, getting into this and doing everything right and putting in a lot of good, high quality bid solicitations, and nothing is ever going to guarantee that you're going to win an award. So sometimes it can take some time to really build your capacity and kind of break into the market. So just understand that it's not just as simple as showing up and saying, hey, I'm a small business, or I'm an HUBZone firm, I'm an 8A firm, what have you. It does take some time and effort, but it is definitely doable. And again, we have some tremendous resources available to assist. I mentioned kind of our SBDCs, Women's Business Centers, but I do want to highlight especially our PTACs. PTACs are Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. And what they are is they're actually our federally funded partners. They're funded by the federal government and also receive some local money, typically from the state that they're located in. There's about 100 PTAC centers across the country, and they are charged with serving as government contracting educational resources specifically for small business. So at the SBA, I spend a lot of my time doing what counseling I can, but there's sometimes as a business opportunity specialist, I have to do more some administrative type of stuff where I'm actually reviewing other contracting agencies and activities and making sure they're meeting their small business goals, or working behind the scenes in like the 8A program on some sole source contracts and things like that. But our PTACs, they are our partners that are able to help you with that upfront handholding. So we're going to talk about some of the registrations and things like that you have to do to even get your foot in the door for some of the stuff that is involved in the procurement area. And that is where the PTACs can be invaluable. Their services are either completely free of charge or very, very little charge, and they are just phenomenal partners. And they can really get into the weeds with you to help streamline some of these processes and things that we're going to talk about. So again, I don't want to scare anybody off. Understand, though, that it is going to take some time and effort, but about 20,000 small businesses every year do get their first federal contract. And so it's absolutely very viable, and it's something you can do too. So talk about some expectations here. I always like to show this. Anybody that's a fan of the Twilight Zone, I always focus on the middle. I call it the truth zone. One of the things we hear a lot about from potential vendors when they first come to us, it's one of two things. They either think it's really, really simple and they just kind of got to show up and say, okay, I want a contract. It's my tax dollars. Where's my contract at? Or the other thing I hear is government contracting is rigged. All the big guys come in and steal all the business. There's nothing left for small business. So why even bother with this? Well, first of all, as far as it being easy, it's not. Like I said, there is some stuff you have to do, but it's absolutely nothing that you can't work through or isn't so overwhelming that you can't get through these processes relatively quickly and efficiently. It is definitely, again, I keep saying this, but it's very true. It is a very viable market for many, many small business clients. So don't ever feel overwhelmed. If you ever Googled any of this stuff, you can go down a lot of different rabbit holes and your eyes will pop out of your head. It'll make you think contracting is just the worst thing in the world. And it absolutely does not have to be like that. So reach out to me at the SBA, one of our PTAC partners, one of our other small business groups. We will definitely, again, work with you to help you streamline some of these things so that it's not so overwhelming for you. As far as it being impossible, again, we hear this stuff all the time about it being political, rigged, and all that sort of thing. And it's just not something we see that much on the federal sector. Now, of course, have things happen in the past? Absolutely. Things that shouldn't have, without a doubt. Are there bad actors out there that try to come up with kind of crazy schemes to defraud the government? Yes. But it is not something that happens, as much as people kind of think or kind of put out there into the public. It is very, very, very difficult to try to rig a contract these days. Like I said, there are teams of people that work on these things. There's not really even an opportunity for elected officials to be able to put undue influence on a contract. That's actually illegal. And in most cases, it's just not something they're able to even do, because we hear that a lot about, I'm just going to go down to my senator's office. He'll give me a contract. Well, good luck with that. Probably not going to happen. And if it does, call me, because they're going to have a problem. But anyway, so, it's just not something that we see. As far as the big guys grabbing all the business, again, we actually have on the federal side what we call simplified acquisition thresholds, or the SAT. And what that says is that any contract valued at up to $250,000 is automatically set aside for small business. So that means that big companies can't even bid on that contract. And for a lot of our clients, a $250,000 contract, or even a $100,000 contract, or $50,000, that's a big deal for a lot of small businesses. So they are more than happy to participate in those and go after those funds. So don't always think you have to get these big 5, 10, $15 million deals that the government may have out there. There's a lot of opportunities, and you really have to have the capacity, which we're going to discuss here shortly, to perform on some of these things. But a $250,000 contract is a great contract for a lot of our small business clients. And I know prime contractors, contracting officers at like Lockheed and things like that, and some of the other big defense contractors, they won't even bother bidding on anything that's valued at less than $1 million. For them, it's not even worth the paperwork. So they don't even care. I mean, so the fact of the matter is, it just doesn't happen to that level. There's a ton of opportunity for small businesses there. And as far as it being complicated, I kind of addressed that already. Yes, it can be, but definitely work with the resource partners. We exist for a reason. We're here to assist, and we are more than happy to do what we can for you. So again, the truth is actually somewhere in the middle. It's not super simple, but it's not outrageously hard, but it does take some time and effort and focus. And expectations from the government, we are actually pretty simple. We're looking for quality products and services, reputable vendors, good delivery, competitive prices, and make it easy for us to find you. And there are ways you can do that. We're going to talk about marketing, but simply put, our agencies need the best support in the world from the best vendors we can possibly get, because you literally may be providing a life-saving product or service, again, to our military, to a medical facility, what have you. So we need good quality products and services from reputable vendors. Again, we are very, very mission focused. So kind of if you think of how the military is and the structure and everything, a lot of those ideals from the military permeate throughout government contracting on the federal side. So number one thing for us is always going to be performance. That's what we're looking for. And then we'll worry about and look at those different socioeconomic programs, small business spends, and things like that. But number one thing, again, is if we have a need, you can rest assured we need that item, and we are going to want the best potential support we can get. So some things you want to do before we even get into any of the registrations or certifications or anything else that you may want to jump into. Number one thing, I want you to take an inventory of your company. And this is where Melanie, brought some things up in the beginning there. So, this is what we're talking about here. One of the things you're going to hear me say, hear our partners say, if you want to work in the federal sector, is you have to be what we call procurement ready. All right. So just have a good, honest assessment of yourself and take a look at your internal operations. First of all, do you have a good past success history of satisfied clients? Do you have a commitment from management and resources? Have you been in business for at least 2 years? The federal contracting is not for startups. That is one thing I will put out there. If you don't have at least a minimum of 2 years of successful sales history in the commercial sector, it is going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get a federal contracting officer or agency to even consider you. We do not want to be anyone's first customer. Okay, so understand that. That's something that's very important. We have a lot of startups. They file their paperwork. They say, "Oh, I've been in business for 3 years," and we take a look. Well, what kind of history do you have? Well, I've had my LLC on paper for 3 years, but I haven't had any sales yet. Okay, so that to us is not in business. We are looking from the date of your first sale. That's what we're after. So you need to understand, again, it's going to take some focused marketing. You're going to have your sales staff, looking into some of these things, learning some of the lingo with the different types of contracts, RFPs, RFQs, sources sought notices, how to respond to these types of things. It's going to take some effort. So you want to make sure you have the capacity to not only perform successfully, but have the resources to take a look at that internally. Size is not necessarily important. Like I said, we have many clients that are well under, 2-3 people, if that, sometimes even one person sole proprietorships that are very successful government contractors. And, that $250,000 or less threshold, again, is a very big contract for a small outfit like that. But so don't suddenly feel like, to play in this space that you have to suddenly ramp up your operation and bring on 100 people and, and all that sort of things. Absolutely not the case. You do want to make sure, though, that you have good financial resources. You're making your payroll. Is your business financially stable? Do you have a line of credit if you need it? And things like that. If you're in an industry like in construction, or maybe if you're a roofing contractor in the commercial sector and you're replacing somebody's roof, it's not too uncommon to say, "Oh, I want half the money down. loan. You buy the materials, do part of the project, get the rest of the money later, that sort of thing. The federal government, we are not going to front you money. So it's up to you to make sure that you have that capacity before you even bid on a contract. So there's no, hey, give me half down now, I'll buy the equipment, and then you pay me later. We do not do that. Now, quality. If you're a manufacturer especially, you're going to need some sort of quality assurance plan. ISO 9000 is typically preferred, but in most of our contracting agencies will take some sort of equivalency plan, just as long as you're, machining things properly to the right tolerances and stuff like that. Obviously, if you're making parts, same replacement parts for an Apache helicopter, we can't have those things failing when we have 5 soldiers being, in the air on a part that you made because it failed. So we need that quality assurance plan to make sure that that stuff is done to the proper specs. So just keep those sorts of things in mind. Office management, accurate records. This is kind of what Melanie mentioned at the beginning. And I always like to talk about the movie Dodgeball. If anybody's ever seen that, comedy with Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller from like 2005. Funny movie. It came out right around the time I was just finishing up college, so I was the target demographic for the time. But anyway, there's a scene in that movie where Vince Vaughn owns a gym called Average Joe's Gym. It's a little, local gym, fitness center, and it's not doing real well because he's getting put out of business because right across the street is Globo Gym, the big corporate gym owned by Ben Stiller. And they get into a spat and, just a funny back and forth type movie. But anyway, there's a part where Average Joe's is, getting foreclosed on, unfortunately. So the bank examiner comes out and she says to Vince Vaughn's character, says, hey, I need to see your bank records and your business records and things like that. And he looks at her and says, oh, yeah, I call those keepers. Takes her into the business office, opens up a closet, and all this piles of junk and just stuff just flies all over her, hits her in the head, all that stuff, okay? If you're doing business that way, get that cleaned up before you even think about getting a federal contract or trying to look at this. And unfortunately, I bring this up because I've been on way too many client visits in my career where there are people out there that, and even in this day and age, that still operate like that. So don't do that. Again, you need to make sure you have good, accurate record keeping, especially if you want to start looking at federal awards. Technology is always important, especially these days. A lot of our stuff is paid through procurement integrated enterprise environments, EFT, which is electronic funds transfer. Those are going to be important if you're doing some of that DoD work. And the last thing I want to mention is you want to identify your core competencies. Showing up to a contracting officer and saying, we can do it all. I can be that one-stop shop for whatever you need. And you're a small business with 3 people is not impressive to us. Okay. We want experts. Again, think mission focused, critical support, performance. We would rather you show up on our door and say, I do these 1 or 2 things really, really, really well, as opposed to saying I do 50 different things in 50 different industries, and I can be that one-stop supplier for you for all of your needs. We know you can't do it. Odds are, you can't do it. Again, I've seen people's profiles with small businesses and they mean well. I absolutely get it. You want to put your best foot forward and be kind of that, yes, you don't want to admit you can't quite support what they need and you want that opportunity. I totally get it as a business specialist. But again, our contracting officers are going to look at that and say, okay, you're a small business with 2 people, yet you work in 50 different industries and have 50 different NAICS codes in your SAM profile, and none of them have anything to do with each other. And what I mean is I've seen people that have profiles that everything from like catering to HR services, to, oh yeah, we do structural steel erection. We can do roofing projects, floor installation. Oh, and I do IT services too. Okay, so that's only 7 industries that are totally unrelated. If you're a staff of 2 or 3 people and you say you can do 50, we know you cannot do that. All right, so that's a big red flag to us. So you want to be an expert in what you do. So pick what you do well and focus on those things. So as far as getting started, it's actually not too difficult at all. There's only a few basic registrations you have to do to actually start looking at federal solicitations. So we're going to talk about those real quick and just kind of go through the processes. They're not outrageously hard, but there are a couple things you want to do. First of all, make sure you know your NAICS codes. NAICS codes are North American Industry Classification System codes. All those are industry-specific codes that identify what you do. Very, very simple to look up. Just go to the census.gov website, I have the link there, and I'll be sending these to Melanie. She's more than welcome to send out the slides to everybody that's on today, so you can get a copy of those and have access to all these links. But the census.gov website, you can go on there very, very simply, type in just a couple industry-specific terms for the type of work you do, and it will tell you exactly what your NAICS codes are. It takes maybe 2 minutes to look up, not a lot of work at all. You do want to, though, then study the market a little bit and do your homework. Now, this is an area where the PTACs can be very, very helpful, but we do have some databases and websites available that are out there anytime that people can go and look at bid opportunities, different past procurement history reports that I mentioned through that federal procurement data system, which is the second link. The first link I have there for federal contracting opportunities is beta.sam.gov. That is for any solicitation that the federal government puts out valued at $25,000 or more. So that's going to be your first stop for actual opportunities and work to bid on. And really just kind of go to some of those websites, talk to your PTAC, request some of those procurement histories. And again, just have them focus a little bit and help you determine what agencies are buying what you sell. You don't want to waste your time and effort trying to get trying to do work with, say, the Department of, say, maybe the Army, when we have a whole department in the Army that does what you do. But maybe, the Office of Management and Bureau, they may not have experts. They may buy a lot of what you sell. So those are some things you want to do. Is definitely just do a little bit of that homework and see where you might fit kind of in the whole scheme of things. And also your PTACs will be able to tell you that even if the federal government work that we're talking about today isn't quite a fit for you, maybe you're better off looking at state work or even local government work. There's a lot of different governing bodies out there, all with different procurement rules and regulations. So even if you're not a good fit on the federal side, don't automatically neglect or disqualify yourself from some of those other entities out there. So once you know your NAICS codes, you just have to get a DUNS number. DUNS number is requested through Dun & Bradstreet. It's a 9-digit sequence recognized all over the world. If you've ever done any sort of gotten a loan from a bank or whatnot, you probably have a DUNS number already. If you don't have one, it only takes about 10 minutes to actually fill out that online web form, and it's completely free of charge when you're registering for the purpose of getting a government contract. So again, doesn't take too much time at all. They only ask for very, very basic information. And then finally, you want to register in the System for Award Management, or SAM. And what SAM is, that is the federal government's actual vendor identification database. So SAM registration typically takes most clients about an hour or two. Again, they can that time can be cut down considerably. If you work with your PTAC, they can probably help you get it done in about 20 minutes, half an hour. Relatively quick process where we're just asking you about your business and you're getting you registered to do business with the federal government. So you're only looking at maybe total, by the time you look up your NAICS codes, your DUNS number, and get yourself registered in SAM, maybe an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours if there's a couple documents you need or some things you don't know that you have to go look up of actual time just to get yourself registered to be eligible to actually start pursuing government contracts. Okay, so it's not overly difficult and does not take a lot of time. Now, there are two other things I want to mention here. One, you see the third bullet there I have under registrations called the SBA's Dynamic Small Business Search, or DSBS. That is not a requirement to do work with the government, but I always kind of say that it is for my small business clients. Because what that is SAM is, like I said, SAM is the official registration database that all vendors that want to get government money have to be in. The Dynamic Small Business Search, though, is an actual exclusive website only for small businesses that SBA maintains for you to actually populate with your marketing information. So like a capability statement, your marketing profile, where you can actually create a custom profile to talk about all the great work that you do. And what happens sometimes, unfortunately, is I mentioned about all the market research that contracting officers do. Sometimes clients of ours, they'll do the SAM registration, but then they won't actually do the Dynamic Small Business Search. So then contracting officers don't find them because they don't actually have a profile in the DSBS. So you can get away without, to register and get away without doing it up front. But I always recommend our small business clients absolutely take advantage of that website. We are very strict, the federal agencies are, about using logos and things like that of ours and issuing those to clients like we can't in a lot of cases. So the fact that as the federal agency and the federal government through SBA, the fact that we maintain a marketing database strictly for small businesses, absolutely take advantage of that and populate that. So, and really, once you do those couple of things, you're eligible to start finding some of those bid opportunities and things. So you can go to, like I mentioned, to the beta.sam.gov site for anything $25,000 and over. But this is an area, again, where definitely reach out to and work with your procurement center, your local PTACs. The PTACs actually have very robust electronic bid matching programs where they can help you set up a free or very, very cheap, like $20 a year, custom search profile, which is basically an online scraper that they pay for on your behalf. So again, use the government subsidized one. They'll help you create a custom search profile for the type of work you're looking for, plug all your information in there, and then their system will scan all the different federal websites, the state websites every day for bid notices that match your search criteria, and they email you the solicitations. So instead of you having to allocate staff or you yourself spending hours trying to go out to these different sites and search for stuff, they bring it directly to you. It is an amazing value. It's a tremendous system. And it is something you could even go and buy on your own if you didn't want to use the PTAC side. Like I said, but it's either free or about $25. But if you bought one on your own, it's probably going to cost you about $5 or $10 grand a year. So do not do that. All right. Absolutely use the procurement centers, and they will be more than happy to get you set up with one of these profiles to actually find you relevant opportunities to bid on. So I want to spend just a few minutes on a couple of procurement methods, and then we'll jump into the certifications a little bit, and then we'll take some questions. But I just want to talk about just a couple different types of procurement methods. Now, not everything is the big, crazy, sealed bid, which is what a lot of people think of when federal agencies buy stuff. So we do have micro purchases, and what those are, micro purchases for us are anything valued at up to $10,000. So $10,000 or less, we actually don't have bid requirements for. So it's considered, again, a micro purchase. An agency needs something quickly. It's less than 10 grand. We can buy it with a credit card. There's about 20 billion annually spent on that. So that's why marketing, which I have a couple slides about, is very, very important in the federal sector, because not every procurement or not every type of transaction out there is that big kind of sealed bid RFP type of thing. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you can get to know some of these contracting officers and, you start getting some small sales with credit cards for $5 grand. I mean, I have clients that focus on micro purchases specifically, and they will gladly take $5,000 micro purchases a year. I mean, that's $50K back in your pocket. Relatively easy to do. All you have to do is market and make those connections. Sealed bidding. Now, this is when you get into kind of the sealed bids and things like that when people, what people actually think about with government contracting. So a sealed bid is a type of bid when we know exactly what we want. Okay, so the government knows what they're after. We tell you exactly how we want you to implement the project or make a certain item or whatnot, and then we award this project to the lowest responsible bidder. And by responsible, we mean price, experience, past performance, technical capabilities. So in this type of sealed bid, it's very price driven. We're looking for the lowest responsible bidder, so the cheapest price. Okay, so cheapest price, and we're telling you exactly how we want you to implement the project. So that's what a sealed bid is. Well, as opposed to an RFP or request for proposal, this is a little bit different. Now, an RFP is a sealed bid in that it's a closed submission, meaning that it's sealed. When you send it to the contracting officer. But in the case of an RFP, the little difference is we award these for objective-based procurements. So with an RFP, we know what we want our end result to be, but this is an area where we don't necessarily have the expertise on staff to know how to implement the project. So our solicitation, if we put that on the street, we'll just have general rules or general terms about what it is we're trying to accomplish, and it's up to you to figure out the best way to implement that. So at this point, it's the responsibility of the contractor to determine, which is you, obviously, the small business, to determine how to put that into place for us, and we want to know how much it's going to cost. So these types of contracts are awarded on overall best value. So it's not always cheap. That's another common misconception with federal work, is that we're just looking looking for the absolute cheapest price we can get. We are trying to be very good stewards of government dollars, okay? But we're always going to be looking at things from the lens of what is in the government's best interest. So for example, if we get two entirely different projects that would meet the need of what we have on an RFP, but one project is maybe $100,000 and can be done in 6 months, and the other project is maybe only $50,000, but it's going to take 2 years to implement. If that contracting officer feels that they'd rather have that project done in 6 months and it's in our best interest, the government's best interest, we can pay the extra $50,000 and have that project completed in 6 months instead of 2 years. Okay, so keep that in mind. RFQs, these are very standard. This is when we're just looking for a price. You'll see this a lot with commodity type, off-the-shelf items, nothing too crazy there. We want, 10, 50-gallon drums, 10W30 motor oil, or a pallet, cases, what have you, whatever denomination. How much is it going to cost? We don't care if it's Wolf's Head, Pennzoil, whatever. We just want a number. So simple enough. Sole source contracts. Now, these aren't used a whole lot in the open market side of things. You'll see sole sources a lot more with some of the socioeconomic programs, but these are used when it's reasonably believed we only have one qualified supplier and they're negotiated directly without a competitive bid process. So you'll see this a lot more if you're in like a high tech industry or you have some sort of proprietary robotic system. And case in point, actually, I have a client that actually has a unmanned robotic system for bomb disposal units. It's proprietary software, CMU spinoff, and he obviously has a sole source contract because he's the only person that created it and actually has it. So that's where you're going to see specialty items like intellectual property and things like that. That's where you'll see sole sources. So just like to mention those. And a couple last two here real quick. Just mention these directly. Now, these are not kind of direct government contracts. So subcontracting is a great way to learn the ropes of working in the federal market. So don't discount that. Now, we don't hook you up with prime contractors. It's up to you to identify primes, similar to some of the market research you would do when identifying agencies you want to work with. You want to figure out, what big prime contractors may have contracts that you could potentially supply on and reach out to them to see if there's a way you can become one of their preferred suppliers and that sort of thing. But the last one I do want to mention is sources sought notices. And these are very critical because you will see these on beta.sam.gov quite a bit. And this is not an actual bid or proposal solicitation, but it's a solicitation of interest. And basically what a sources sought notice is the contracting officer, I mentioned all the market research we do, they are simply fishing to see who's out there in the industry that could potentially fill a need they have. They also use this information to determine, try to get an idea about pricing, to determine if it should be a small business set aside or if they should use a socioeconomic designation and that sort of thing. So sources sought notices typically don't take a lot of time to respond to, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, but so many of our small business clients don't respond to them because they know that it's not necessarily going to be, be awarded a contract immediately. And they think, oh, well, it's not going to give me any money anytime soon. Why should I even bother responding to this? And then they don't reply. And then the contracting officers, having done their market research, if we can't find any small businesses because they chose not to reply, then we can open it up and go ahead and start awarding the contracts, like I mentioned, to those big contracting entities out there in those large primes. So again, if we do our market research and we don't get any interest from small business, we can't help that. So we need you to let us know that you're out there and that you can perform and do these things. That's a great way for us to help us, get those contracting dollars directed to you as small business entities. I have clients come to us all the time that say, oh, I saw this contract and I could have done this and this contracting officer shouldn't have did that. And I'm like, well, did you respond to the sources sought? And they said no, or, oh, I didn't see it, or I didn't look, or I never do those. They're not worth the time or the effort. Well, then I go and pull the contract history, and the agency did 3 months worth of sources sought solicitations and did not get a single small business to apply to it. So at that point, you can't come and complain after the fact. We can't fix it anymore. So absolutely respond to those. I cannot stress that enough. And the last thing I want to mention, procurement methods, GSA. Some of you may be familiar with GSA schedules, federal supply schedules. These are just kind of open-ended blank purchasing agreements that are pre-negotiated contracts where you fill out a set of paperwork and get pre-listed to offer products and services directly to the government. Now, so once you get on this list, you can actually sell things to different federal agencies without any competition. Contracting officers can just purchase directly from your pre-approved schedule. So it sounds very simplistic. That's the short, the very, very short overview of what a GSA schedule is. But these are pretty in-depth, pretty detailed. It takes about 9 months to a year to actually get listed on a GSA schedule. And this is an area where, again, it's only going to be for commodity off-the-shelf type items. So we're not looking at specialty products or services here, but things that, just have a number attached to them. So marketing, I kind of mentioned a lot of this already. There's a lot of purchases made every day that are not the whole big sealed bid, lowest price procurement. Government customers need to know that you're out there. So by all means, take advantage of your dynamic small business search. Definitely fill out that profile. You have to let them know that you're out here and that you have a good quality product or service that can help them execute their mission. That's really what it's all about. And building some of those relationships with these contracting officers will absolutely be huge for you in helping you win some of these federal awards. Some ways to do it, I kind of mentioned. You have to register in SAM anyway. So, all of your socioeconomic statuses will be in SAM when you sign up. Your dynamic small business search that I just mentioned. You're absolutely allowed to contact contracting officers, send them your capability statement, things like that. Network with them at trade shows and things, which obviously there's not been a lot of in-person trade shows lately. But one of the things we do at the district office is we actually bring in government contracting officers from all over the country, from various agencies, at least once a quarter. And we kind of have little panels with them set up where they do a 5-minute presentation to our clients about what their needs are, what kind of procurements they have on the radar, what some of their things they're looking for. So you guys are more than welcome to attend those. I'll definitely make sure Melanie has those coming up on all of her emails and things going forward, and all the invites for that. And that's pretty much it for that portion. So I just want to spend like 2 or 3 quick minutes on the socioeconomic programs and just kind of touch on these. Now, I kind of talked about, obviously the different ways that we drive money to small businesses through like the simplified acquisition threshold and that sort of thing. And our overall small business spend every year at the federal government is 23%. And actually in 2019, we don't have 2020 numbers yet. They're still being compiled. But in 2019, our federal agencies did a tremendous job and hit 26% of the goal. So we were actually 3% over. And that 26% was actually $132.9 billion set aside just for small businesses. So if you were a small business and you had no other certifications, you had access to a pot of $133 billion in federal money, just, across all industries. So again, we're talking about billions. So this is another area where you look at those percentages and think 5, 5, 3, and 3 for the HUBZone, vet, women-owned, small disadvantage. That's not a whole lot. Well, last year, the women-owned spend was actually 5%. We exceeded that a little bit. It was around $26 billion. The 8A program, which is our small disadvantage business program, which every Hispanic is obviously a minority certification, or minority designation that would be eligible for 8A certification. That number was, our agencies did phenomenal, hit 10.29%. That equated to $51.6 billion for 8A money. HUBZone has always been a little tricky to hit, and that one's a little different in that it's a location-based program and not ownership-based. And it's around 2%, but $11 billion was still spent there. And our service-disabled vet, 3%. We exceeded that at actually hit 4%. That was $22 billion. So again, we're talking about billions of dollars attached to these programs. And it's amazing how much money and how fruitful they can be for our small business clients that are eligible. So obviously these certifications, there's a number of rules and regulations to get into them because we are very, very cognizant of people that try to take advantage of things. We've unfortunately had some instances in the past where, somebody will say, oh, okay, well, the gentleman used to love to say, oh, I'm going to put this in my wife's name so I can get women-owned small business status. And that absolutely does not work. Okay, we take a very good hard look at these things, and sometimes it frustrates some of our clients that are actually eligible because they're, good quality clients. They're trying to do the right thing, and it can be a little daunting to get into these programs. But we are doing that for a reason, just to make sure the people that are entitled to these funds, that deserve to have their opportunity to get them, are the ones that actually qualify and eligible for these programs. So we're more than happy to work with you on these things and kind of take you through these processes. If you decide you want to pursue a socioeconomic certification. So, are you unique? Obviously, you have to be a small business, first of all. And one of the great things about small business status on the federal side is you do not have to go through an additional certification portal or an additional vetting process other than your SAM registration. Whenever you look up your NAICS codes and you plug that information into SAM and you put your other business information in there, the SAM system will do an automatic check with the SBA Small Business Size Standards table. So at that point, if SAM certifies you and says, hey, you're a small business, okay, if the system designates you as a small business, then in the eyes of the federal government, you are a federally certified small business. There's nothing else you have to do. It's one of the most streamlined things, and it's already built into the SAM system itself. So we are really, really happy about that because it's a good streamlined way for you to automatically qualify yourself as a small business entity. And for most companies, most industries, anybody with 500 employees or less, which is a really big number in my opinion, is going to be considered a small business. So just want to mention that. The other programs, when it comes to the 8A program, which I have here, the woman-owned program and the veteran program, you're going to see pretty much the same thing. We're looking for the individual owner or owners that are 51% owned and controlled by U.S. citizens who are economically or socially disadvantaged, or obviously in the case of the woman-owned program or the veteran, who is the veteran or the woman. So there are some criteria. It has to be owned by someone whose personal net worth is $750,000 or less. Adjusted gross income for 3 years is $350,000 or less, and you have to have $6 million or less in assets. And the owner, again, has to manage the day-to-day operations and be able to make long-term decisions for the company. Okay, so it's, again, just something we take a very hard look at. There's a lot of documentation and things for these programs, but we just like to mention this just so you're aware that what's out there and available to you. So you can actually find all the information you could possibly need for the 8A program at certified.sba.gov. That's actually a screenshot of the top of the page there. We have everything there with home, prepare. You can find all the documents right on the website. So if you want to take a look at that, explore that a little more. Same way with the woman-owned program. Now we are transitioning some systems. Some of you probably noticed the 8A program was at certified.sba.gov, and we have beta.certified.sba.gov. Beta is specifically for the woman-owned certification. Eventually, these are all going to be consolidated into one portal, but we're right in the middle of getting some of this stuff worked out. So, make sure you're on the right website depending on what you want to pursue. The Veterans Verification Program, this one is actually done through CVE. It's not directly through the SBA. The CVE is the Center for Verification and Excellence, and that's a division of the VA. But again, we're looking into the veteran owner, unconditional ownership, day-to-day management, that sort of thing. Nothing too crazy compared to the other ones. And then finally, if you want to take a look at the HUBZone program, HUBZone is the Historically Underutilized Business Zone program. And like I said, it's a little different in that the other three I mentioned are ownership-based, based on the owner, whereas HUBZone is more location of the principal office. So basically with HUBZone, SBA headquarters down in DC has a very detailed algorithm they use to identify historically underutilized business zones all throughout the country. If your business is in one of those business zones, then you're able to apply for HUBZone certification. So the only other caveat with the HUBZone certification is not only does your office have to be in a HUBZone, but at least 35% of your employees also have to reside in a HUBZone somewhere. So again, we do look at some of your employee history there, their personal residences and things like that. Okay, so this slide's just some resources. I have the PTAX listed, our other ones I mentioned in the beginning, SCORE, SBA.gov. We have some excellent things there. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to us or one of our partners. We are more than happy to do what we can for you. Like I said, whatever we can do to assist you, we're happy to help. And this is just a few slides, have some upcoming trainings. I do a lot of government contracting outreach on all kinds of different topics. I just did one yesterday on navigating the beta.sam.gov site, actually, with our PTAC partners. Actually, I got to take a little break on that one. I didn't have to talk a whole lot. So I was happy about that. But we do things on bonding, essentials of federal contracting. We're going to have one on the mentor protege program coming up. You can see when those are. Our next e-chat, we're going to talk about how to work with large federal prime contractors. We have a couple of those coming up. Cybersecurity maturity model, if you're into the IT side of things, and some of the new DoD rules with cybersecurity. And also, I just did responding to federal solicitations. I still have the recording of that if anybody's anybody's interested. Next session will be next Thursday, May 20th. I'll be talking again about subcontracting there, be doing a marketing presentation in June on the capability statements, GSA, like I mentioned, and things like that. So we try to make sure we have a lot of different content for all of our different entities out there that are small businesses, everything from, advanced training sessions to just kind of starting off in it and just kind of get everybody covered. As far as the information to learn about our offerings and things of our trainings, definitely sign up for our Gov deliveries. You can do it through text or right at that public.gov delivery link there. You can follow us on Twitter at SBA Pittsburgh or email us at the general mailbox, which is wpainfo@sba.gov. And there is my contact information and also my coworker, Marissa Fensel. Marissa and I are the two business opportunity specialists, which basically means we're the government contracting experts locally for our office. So if you have any questions at all, we're more than happy to get you pointed in the right direction. So Melanie, I think I clocked in right about on time there. So I'm happy to take a question or two if we have the time. If not, I'm all done.
Thank you so much. That was tremendous. There was so much good information in there. And I did share a couple of links down in the comments so that everyone could go to the website and get, the extra help that they need. But we do have two questions. Let me just pull them up really quickly here.
Sure.
First of all, someone did ask if this is going to, be somewhere in the future when it's not live. It does say on our Facebook page, and we do also put it on our YouTube for anyone wondering. This next question is from Oma Malloy. It says, what is the most common mistake made by applicants?
Oh, that's actually an easy one. The number one reason that people have trouble with government contracting or any of our certification programs, responding to RFPs, anything at all, is honestly, it's lack of information and not providing required documentation, either due to a lack of understanding or simply they just miss a document. We unfortunately cannot make a determination until we have all required documentation. And again, we're very mission focused and we want to make sure the money in these funds are going to the right people. So if we can't make a determination because something was missed, we don't have the ability in a lot of cases to just go back out to the client, or back out to the vendor potentially and say, hey, we just need you to send us in this one document. And we can't ask individually because everything has to be fair and equitable. So we have to reject the whole thing. And people automatically exclude themselves just because they missed something. And we have very detailed checklists for a lot of this stuff. It's right on our website. So there's really not a good reason for missing it. But people sometimes just don't read it or don't understand it. And instead of asking for help, they just think, oh, I'll just send in what I have. It's the government. That'll be good enough. And unfortunately, that's not good enough. So that's the number one thing we see. That's the biggest reason for rejections by far, is just not submitting everything we ask for.
That is terrible after all that work for it to be potentially.
Yes. And that is the worst thing, Melanie. And as a former contracting officer, an official who used to award contracts, believe me, no contracting person takes any pleasure in rejecting somebody's bid or their application for a socioeconomic program because of missed documentation. It's the worst feeling because we know that not only did you spend a lot of time and effort doing it, but you could have the best bid or the best application possible. But if you didn't do it in the format that we told you to or follow our directions to the letter, we legally cannot accept it.
That is terrible. Well, I hope that everyone goes by the Santa rule. They make a list and then they check it twice.
Yeah, exactly.
We do have one more question here. This is from Christine Jamis. She said, is there anything businesses should be thinking about to make themselves more attractive for federal procurement?
Oh, absolutely. Very good. Yeah, that's a great question. Well, without a doubt, a couple of key things. One, like I said, really focus and hone in on what you do well. Think about what you're the expert at and, what it is you want to supply the government, and be, working on your elevator pitch a little bit and put together a phenomenal capability statement. Capability statements, you've heard me say that a few times. For anyone that doesn't know what it is, it's basically a one-page resume of your business. And for government contracting officers, those can be very, very valuable tools and marketing information that you can provide them. If if we get overwhelmed sometimes with some of the amount of small businesses that want to work with us. So we don't have time to necessarily go through somebody's 10 pages of marketing documents, or if they have this excellent marketing book and things like that. We want to see that capability statement. It's one page, it's clear, it's concise. We want to take a look at your DUNS number. We want to make sure your cage code is on there, that you're registered in SAM. If you have any socioeconomic certifications, we want to know, hey, I'm a woman-owned business, I'm a veteran, I'm 8A. Any of those designations and things are all things that can trigger something with the contracting officer that really carry a lot of weight with us. But number one, of course, we're always going to be performance focused. So we want to look at your differentiators. So tell us on your capability statement, not, oh, well, I supply light bulbs, but maybe 100 people supplied light bulbs. What's so good about your light bulbs? Are they special? Do you have some sort of special proprietary light bulb, or do you have something that it lasts 10 times longer? What makes you attractive? Do you have better deliverables than anybody in your industry? We want to see your performance. So what can you tell us about you, other than just bringing the certifications and things to the table, which are important, but we want to see what can you do that makes you different from everybody, that makes you the best potential vendor. So really think about that. That will help you tremendously.
I love that. While you were talking, I actually pulled from a government website how to write a capability statement, and there is actually a sample at the bottom of the page. So if you guys want to know what that looks like, I did throw that over there in the comments. But if anyone else has any questions, it's kind of a final call before Dave speaks again. Sorry, yeah, Dave.
Sure. No problem. I was just going to say the capability statements, I actually have some great samples at the office. If you want, I'm going to zip over my slides too. If you want to share with the group, you're more than welcome to attach those capability statements if they want to take a look at them and kind of see how they look. Capability statements, the cool thing about them is it's really kind of up to you how you do it, what kind of graphics you use and things. There's no singular format. It's just really a matter of hitting those key areas. So I'll be happy to send those over to you.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dave. Is there anything you would like to add before we wrap up?
No, I think I covered everything that I had to say. Just thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Give me the chance to talk to everybody. I love doing this type of stuff. This is actually fun for me. I enjoy what I do, and helping small businesses be successful. I can honestly say it's something that everybody in our district office, we have 9 employees here in Western PA. We're all very, very passionate about it. Some of us have been business owners ourselves. We understand where you're coming from. And again, I've said it multiple times, but anything you need, just let us know, and we are more than happy to be a resource for you and do what we can. So again, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Hi again, everyone. I just wanted to wrap up to tell you that the Latino Pittsburgh Digital Speaker Series is an initiative of the Pittsburgh Metropolitan Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Its goals are to share relevant information, inspire growth, and foster opportunity. Speakers and workshops include community leaders and members, as well as other individuals and programs that have a positive impact on not only the Hispanic community, but Pittsburgh as a region. Today we spoke with Dave from the SBA, and he told us that the government allots 23% of its overall spending on contracting for small businesses. That's $133 billion. So if you fast forwarded and got to the end before the beginning, or whether you're just tuning in now, I hope that you'll go through and listen and see that it is possible for your business to get some of that income. Have a great day. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to submit them. We will always circle back and try to get back to you. Have a great one. If you would like more information about the Pittsburgh Metropolitan Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, please visit www.pmahcc.org. If you would like to become a speaker, feel free to email chamber@pmahcc.org. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.